Bonjour. Hello, my name is Maria Erss. I am from Tallinn University, Estonia, and I also represent the Estonian NGO Education Forum. So I will tell you about the scenarios for the teaching profession in Estonian schools of the future. First, I will put Estonia on the global educational map. Estonia is a small country in the northeast of Europe, and its population is only 1.3 million people. But it has a reputation as being a consistent high performer in the international PISA test since 2006 in mathematics, science, and reading. In fact, in 2018 and also in 2022, Estonia was the top performer in Europe and among the 8 best in the world. And it also has shown good results in terms of equity, meaning that the socioeconomic background of students has so far has had a smaller effect on student performance than in most other OECD countries. The Estonian school system is also famous for its school autonomy, and lately one of the main focuses has been to promote self-directed learning of students. I will first present the Estonian education system on a graph and also talk a little bit about both the formal and non-formal education. The formal education structure looks like this. First, there is the early education until a child turns 7. It's usually from age 3 to 7. 7 is compared to a lot of other countries in Europe quite a late time to go to school, but the children, although they have mostly played in the kindergarten, they have also learned some skills like a little bit reading and writing and social, emotional skills and so on. And teachers who work with them in kindergarten are quite highly educated. They have to have a higher education and pedagogical competence, and also a master's degree is expected from all teachers in Estonia who work in school, master's degree and pedagogical competence. So you can see that this is a comprehensive school system where there is no early tracking. The decisions where to continue their education have to be made after the 9th grade. So you can go either in the general secondary education, which is called gymnasium in Estonia, or in vocational secondary education or just vocational education. And after the secondary education, the options are post-secondary vocational education or higher education. The higher education follows the structure of the Bologna system, the 3-year bachelor degree followed by a 2-year master's degree, and then eventually a 4-year PhD program. It's also important to note that all general education students are given free lunch at school, and also the textbooks are free and school transportation. And students who have special needs, they are included in the education system because we are doing the inclusive education. They are also entitled to free special support, although sometimes the support is not sufficient. For example, it's hard to get an appointment to a speech therapist because there just aren't enough speech therapists. Non-formal education plays an important role too. We have a wide network of hobby education schools and hobby groups. So the most popular types of hobbies are music, art, sports, drama, robotics, and so on. And then there are youth centers, summer camps, including youth summer work camps if students wish to earn a little money, but at the same time also have a social program and some fun activities. And for younger students, there are all-day programs blending study and play. And just to give you a little glimpse how popular it is to participate in non-formal education, About 90% of students participated in some type of hobby education in school year 2019 and 2020, and at least one extracurricular activity is free for all students. Schools and teachers enjoy quite a large autonomy in Estonia. Since 1996, where the national curriculum specified that all schools need to develop their own school-based curricula. They can then decide which subjects to emphasize more. There is a little bit flexible curriculum time given for that. But this flexibility is bigger in the upper secondary school, where schools can really develop quite different profiles and offer all kinds of electives that students can choose from. But still, mainly the Estonian education is a broad and balanced curriculum. So teachers can also decide on the methods and the teaching materials. They can choose to use textbooks, or they can choose not to use textbooks and make their own materials. And they can also use how to do curriculum integration. For example, teach separate subjects, or in some schools, some subjects are put together as an integrated subject, or do project learning, or there are all kinds of different forms they can try. And principals have the freedom to hire and fire teachers, and to decide how to allocate the budget and evaluate the needs for teacher training. And we have quite a diverse school network, because schools have this autonomy to set their own emphases and values. Schools have the opportunity to develop different focuses and attract students who are interested in specific fields of study or specific pedagogies. We have also private schools that offer educational alternatives. About 8% of all children in Estonia attend private schools. Among them are, for example, Montessori or Waldorf education, bilingual schools, democratic schools, but the teachers' salaries are paid centrally by Estonian government, no matter if the children attend the private school or public school. But in terms of teacher autonomy, in my PhD study, I found out that teachers who teach exam subjects like mathematics or Estonian language or foreign languages perceive more pressure to teach the curriculum or to teach to the exam, so they perceive less autonomy. I will talk now about the ongoing and planned reforms in Estonia. There are 4 reforms currently ongoing. First, the transition of all schools to Estonian instructional language, then the extension of compulsory education, the vocational education reform, and the AI leap. The first one, what is it about? The transition of all schools to Estonian instructional language is started in September 2024 and is expected to be completed by 2030, and it aims to offer all students a high quality education and good Estonian language skills, and particularly to create a better social cohesion and equal opportunities in the labor market. So the reasons for the reform have something to do with a very segregated school system that Estonia has inherited since the Soviet period, where separate schools were founded for Russian speakers who were at the time immigrants from Russian-speaking areas in the Soviet Union. At the moment, about 25% of all students attend these type of schools, where the instructional language used to be Russian, and the teachers there were also mostly Russian speakers, educated in Russia or in the Soviet Union. And we have found there are problems still with these students that they have difficulties participating successfully in Estonian society, in higher education, and also in the labor market due to poor Estonian language skills, and also not enough cultural knowledge about Estonian system or Estonian culture and history. There are also difficulties of Russian-speaking teachers in updating their pedagogical skills because they don't speak Estonian language so well, and all teacher education and further education is in Estonian. Also, a gap has been found in PISA tests where Russian-speaking children lag around 40 points behind Estonian-speaking children in literacy, mathematics, and science, and that is an equivalent of 1 school year of knowledge. So the next reform is the extension of compulsory education. Currently, the compulsory education lasts 9 years until the completion of basic education or until a student turns 17. But starting from this year, this school year, the compulsory education includes completion of upper secondary, general or vocational education, or lasts until a student turns 18. And also, when before we had compulsory schooling that was stated in the law, and now they have changed the wording into compulsory learning, emphasizing that learning is what we want to achieve, not just schooling, because schooling can also happen without learning. And the reasons for the reform are that there are concerns that basic education is not enough in modern society, and we have an increasing number of young people not in employment or in training, and also youth without upper secondary education. We would like these trends to be reversed. We realize that for some students, it's difficult to continue their education after the 9th grade because of lack of motivation or some gaps in their skills, or also because they just simply don't know what they want to do. So an extra preparatory year is now being offered to these students so that they can update their knowledge, close the gaps in their knowledge. They can also get counseling, career counseling, try out different vocational profiles, just gives them a little bit more time to make up their mind. And parallel with that goes on the vocational education reform, also starting from this year, 2025. This reform adds 1 extra year to the vocational upper secondary education programs. So far they were 3-year programs, but now they will be 4-year programs. And the aim is to increase the share of general education studies and give vocational students also more general competencies. Because so far vocational education has not been very popular. Only about 25% of students who graduate from basic school have chosen vocational education, partly because a lot of parents and students think that this is a dead end, that because the general education part was so small in the vocational secondary education, it was very difficult if you wanted to continue your studies in higher education afterwards. So this is what the reform aims to fix. And the government also has the aim to increase the popularity of vocational education as a choice. So the idea would be to have at least 40% of basic school graduates choosing vocational education. Also, one idea is to create educational centers that will unite general and vocational upper secondary education in the same institutions, so that transitions would be easier, and that also students who actually are in general education would get the chance maybe to take subjects from vocational education as an elective or vice versa. But at the same time, although vocational education is not so popular among 9th grade graduates, it is becoming very popular among adult education, among adult people who want to update their skills or relearn something, start a new career. But this would all be fine, but one concern has been so far that some adults use these opportunities to freely educate themselves in vocational programs without any intention to use the learned skills professionally as a job. They study, for example, beekeeping or gardening because they enjoy doing it as their hobby. And so the government has now decided that they wouldn't finance adult hobby education anymore. The opportunities for adult learners to get the free vocational education will be reduced. The last but not least, the AI Leap is a very important innovative program. It's a collaboration project between different sectors, the Digital Advisory Chamber of the President of Estonia, Ministry of Education and Research, and private sector entrepreneurs. And the aim is to ensure the international competitiveness of Estonia and to keep Estonian education at the top level by offering AI tools that are specifically modified for educational purposes, so that students and teachers could learn to use them smartly. So currently, educational psychologists and other scientists are collaborating with ChatGPT to create an AI assistant that supports learning instead of giving ready-made answers, which can be actually counterproductive to learning. And this first prototype has been created and is being tested currently. So the first stage started in September in 2025, when upper secondary students from grades 10 and 11 and their teachers got access to this tool. And stage 2 starts next year, when the AI Leap will be expanded to include vocational schools and new 10th grade students and their teachers. And next, I will tell you a little bit about a seminar that was organized by the Estonian NGO Estonian Education Forum last year in Viljandi, where we discussed the visions for future schools in Estonia. And this is the summary of the roundtables we had. We invited different stakeholders to this seminar called Future School 2040. And there were teachers, parents, students, scholars, technology entrepreneurs, school leaders, and policymakers. And 2 questions had to be answered: how to ensure that each child who grows up in Estonia by 2040 receives the best education, which lays the foundation for personal well-being and self-actualization, ensures the preservation of the Estonian culture, the Estonian state, and the success of Estonian economy in a world full of risks and crises. And the second question: what are the roles of different participants of the education process in solving the regional socioeconomic and pedagogical problems? And we had to take into account the assumptions from the Estonian education strategy, which emphasizes learner-centered education, student and teacher well-being, learning in various places, including non-formal and informal education, but also global megatrends such as climate change, geopolitical changes, technological innovations, and the prevalence of AI in education and at work. And current concerns had to be addressed also, which is an increase in educational inequality, negative regional trends, insufficient cooperation between different educational institutions, and so on. So we first discussed the changing role of teachers and students. One concern was that students should not be just consumers of knowledge, but could be given more opportunities to create knowledge. So application of knowledge in different fields of life and work is important, including in an entrepreneurial way to create new products and services. And teachers should be supervisors and guides that support the self-regulated learning of students. AI is expected to take over more routine tasks and free time of teachers to communicate with students and to add more contemporary topics. And teachers can also develop different roles as teacher leaders, assistant teachers. School and teacher autonomy must be preserved, but more collaboration is necessary between different institutions, and also more external experts and specialists should be included in teaching. So we also discussed scenarios for tomorrow's teaching profession in an article by my colleague Krista Loogma and me, where we identified already in 2020 changes in technology as the most important external driver of change in teacher profession, and as an internal factor, the ways to enter the teaching profession, either in a more closed, more selective way, or more open access that may also provide shorter and more superficial ways of teacher education. And we created 2x2 scenarios. We can see that there is an axis between open access and closed access, and developmental orientation and instrumental orientation, where naturally developmental orientation would be more desirable than instrumental orientation. But open or closed access also gives different solutions. Personally, I think the first scenario, digitally savvy coach, is one of the better options, where teachers have really a broader notion of professionalism and use technology in a developmental way, rather than in an instrumental way that only meets the requirements of exams or labor market. As a conclusion, there is a wish for increasing individualization and a more real-life orientation and flexible organization of learning. Very high hopes are placed on AI in transforming education. Teachers need to learn how to use AI smartly, but they also need much more theoretical and evidence-based knowledge to justify their choices. It's quite evident that the society expects that teachers' professionalism should be a broader notion of professionalism, but a broader notion of professionalism also poses very high demands on teaching profession and can lead to teacher burnout unless really more resources are provided. So the key question is how to attract teachers into the profession. Are they motivated more by a broader or a narrower concept of professionalism, and how much support is needed? Thank you for your attention, and I am waiting for your questions.